first contribution to the Kakarot ZKEVM. And I'm pressing go live now on YouTube, and we should be live on YouTube also. So welcome to this stream, YouTube. Today we're going to talk about the Kakarot ZKEVM, and we're going to walk you through how to make your first coding contribution to Kakarot. Today I'm joined by Fresh Pizza and Danilo. Hi guys, how's it going?
Hey, doing well. Yeah, how about yourself? Doing good?
Pretty good. Always happy to be in good company here. So I basically prepared nothing for this workshop. You guys run the show, so like.
Wait, prepare? What?
I prepared the stream. Now the floor is yours.
Okay.
That's why I invited.
So I don't know. Do you want to start with presenting maybe what Kakarot is for the people who just joined and lived in a cave and don't know about Kakarot, the sexiest ZKEVM around?
Yes, I can give a quick intro around Kakarot. So Kakarot is a ZKEVM. It's an EVM. EVM is an Ethereum virtual machine that process Ethereum opcodes. And it's in ZK because we are right now as a smart contract on StarkNet. And Kakarot is a project that was born last year by the initiative of Abdel and Elias and some amazing builders. And we started as an open source project. And actually, that's also where I started like really deep my Kakarot journey. So I think I'm very excited about to share how people can also contribute to it. Yeah, would you like me to go a little bit deeper on what Kakarot is, or?
Up to you. So today we're going to dive into how people can actually contribute code. We're not here just to talk about Kakarot. We're here to show to people how they can use it or how they can contribute to it. So like be the committer you want to see in your repo, right? So it's up to you. Like how do you want to get right into it? Do you want to talk a bit more about the general architecture of Kakarot?
Yeah, maybe quick TLDR, like I guess with Onidas for the people that don't know that relation. So it's part of that program. Maybe Danilo, if you want to.
I can intro. I have prepared a presentation about open source projects. And we'll be talking about only this. And I think then when Fresh Pizza do a live open source contribution, he can also go deeper into Kakarot. So I'm gonna share my screen. I'm feeling a bit nervous. I didn't expect to be live.
Sorry, you thought this was recorded?
No, I mean like on YouTube. I thought it was gonna be.
Don't worry about it. It's just us. We're prepared. We can edit it in post recording. Everything's gonna be fine. I see you share your screen. I'm gonna add it. Ooh, nice.
So, yeah. So, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about some tips around open source contributions. Just a disclaimer. These tips are 100% based on my own experience. So if someone disagree or think there are better ways, I think that's 100% fair. But I feel like I can only share things or path that I have walked through. So this is the path that I walked. This is what worked for me. So this is what I believe I could be sharing today. So one of the things about open source, I think, first, I would say one of the exciting things about open source project is that, at least for me, it really feels nice to, or I really feel excited to contribute to projects that can be used by anyone. And usually the open source ecosystem is a bit more friendlier than other, let's say, closed projects, as I think the mindset and the vibe is usually different. That's why I love it so much. And for me, it's been a journey that I've learned a lot. And I would say that when I wanted to start contributing open source, and from all the things that I did, what worked for me best when I started was to first identify what I wanted to learn particularly, and what are the projects that I wanted to learn particularly. And I think that's one of the beauties of open source as well, because you have all these different projects, and you're free to choose. And sometimes I would feel like I really want to contribute to this project, but I have some feeling of doubt, and I don't know if I can do it, especially in Cairo in the beginning, which was a bit overwhelming, to tell the truth. But I remember that when they open sourced or initiated the open source project for Kakarot, I really, really wanted to do it because for me, the idea of ZKEVM was very, very exciting. And also, I really wanted to learn Cairo, like really, really in a deeper level. So for me, when I saw that, I thought, okay, I want to do this. But at the same time that I thought that, I also had the feeling of, but can I do it? And what I realized after doing some open source contribution to Kakarot, Virus, and even Helios from A16Z is that it doesn't matter how hard it is. With time and effort, you can always make it. So instead of starting with things that you think you can do, start with things that you really want. And one mindset that helped me is that if I could work on anything, what would I be working? And then I worry about the other parts, the technical and the other parts. So always start with something that you really are excited about, because that gives you energy to go through the learning process and the growth process. The second tip I would like to give around open source contribution is, okay, once I have chosen what I want, once I have a clarity of I'm excited about this project. So when I start, when I first come to a project, I try to understand things. I try to understand the flow. For example, for Kakarot, I didn't know Cairo that much. But even though if you don't know Cairo, you can understand the flows. And as you go through the flow, then I would just focus on like some key parts that if I don't understand this, I can't continue. Then I would go and look what this is and learn, and then continuing. But mostly what I felt is that if you know how imports and how functions connect to each other, how files connect to each other, even though you don't know what the function is doing, but you know a little bit about how everything is connected, and you can have a visual map of, or just a map of the flow in your mind, that really helps you to start contributing. After you have this flow clarified, I think the next step that I always take is I read all the issues. I read and I try to read all the available issues in that moment, even the comments, even though I don't understand what they are about, just to have them in the back of my head. And after I read all the issues, then I go and start reading the previous PRs and the discussions. So the previous PRs are hints on how to commit PRs, basically. And what I realized when I did that is that a lot of times when I was reading the PRs and comments after having all the issues in my mind, is that sometimes it would just click. Oh, yeah, that issue it links to this PR. It has a similar vibe, or sometimes it's very similar. For example, when implementing an opcode, how there's several opcodes. How the opcode is structured, it's very similar. Like you have to put the opcode function in this file and and connect this file with this other file, and the only difference would be the logic of the opcode. So even though I didn't understand the full project, if I can't find similar issues with PRs and understand a little bit around discussion, you can implement things even if you're not proficient on that. And the fourth tip that find similar issues, yes, I think this I already mentioned. Maybe I I made it wrong here. And I think once you start reading issues, and once you start reading the PRs, I think one thing that a lot of times people are afraid of, but for me it has been the opposite, is to make a lot of questions, like literally make a lot of questions, and don't be afraid of being wrong. I remember that my first PR in Kakarot was completely wrong. Basically, I thought it was something, but it was something completely else. But the moment I made a PR and I said, hey, and I sent to Abdel, hey, I did this PR. Can you take a look? And then he would say, like, hey, this is wrong because of this, and you should be doing this. And then I started to learn. So making a lot of questions and not being afraid to be wrong, I think, is something that with time have proven to me. Actually, I got more involved on the StarkNet ecosystem because I did a lot of questions around Cairo on the Discord channel. I remember that I was doing a lot of questions. Then after 3 days, Louis was, hey, I see you doing a lot of
Mhm.
questions. Can we have a chat? And then my life changed.
And I think there is a counter side to this, not a counter side, but like there's the other side of the coin also, which is once you're in the ecosystem, take time to answer people and be nice to newcomers. I think that the fact that people can ask question and that people should feel welcome and that there are no dumb questions is extremely important. It's a very, like, this is an asset of our ecosystem that we need to cherish because this is how you onboard more people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel so grateful for all those people that have helped me during my journey, that if I can reproduce 10% of the help that I received, I think I'll be very happy. I don't come from a CS background, or engineering, so I had really really dumb questions, and people were still very patient and they really helped me out. So for me, Discord and Telegram have been my school. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Um, yes, I think I missed some points, but before
No,
going
but
to
I think it was a great introduction on how to make your first contributions to an open source project, what things to look out for, and the general flow. I think this is really valuable for anyone wanting to jump into open source.
yes, I think I would just like to uh, add just one more thing, which is, I think it's a more of a mindset level that really have helped me go through the challenges, is the importance of learning how to learn. One thing that I always had in mind whenever trying something is that it doesn't matter if this becomes useful or not later on, but my if I can improve my ability to learn new things fast, that's already a gain. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. Observe how is the learning process, and what I've observed in until now is that the biggest challenge when learning something new, more than the technical part itself, is the feelings of doubt, and basically the ideas of, can I really do it? And being able to overcome this again and again and again actually have been the biggest asset that allowed me to unlock many possibilities. So I think this is more of a mindset part, but um, and when I look into all these projects, and I have this feeling of I want to do it, but I don't know how to do it, or I don't feel like I can do it, I know that's the place I need to be. Um, and yeah, and to finalize this, I will like this is where I started my open source journey, and I would like to just share a little bit on why I think it's so powerful and how it have worked for me. If you go to app.onlydoes.xyz, you will see that there is all these different projects, all these different languages, in all like different segments of more focused on Web3 and in for only this in the StarkNet ecosystem. So today we will be sharing around about Kakarot. But if you go here, uh, And if you're interested in doing open source contribution, please take a look. Once again, try to find something that enlightens your heart, like makes you feel like, ooh, this is exciting. And also, if you want to learn any specific language, and then I think this is a very good starting point. So yeah, this is
Fantastic.
my take from how to start contributing. And now I think we can go with pizza to fresh pizza, not just pizza, on doing a live contribution with Kakarot.
No, it's good. Fresh pizza is too informal. Pizza is fine. Let me see. Can go
So
present.
when people know you well, do they call you pizza or fresh? Or if
Either or like if yourself, you just go fresh pizza because that's what he thinks is the most fun. But I don't mind. I've heard both enough now. I always say fresh sometimes because people seem to be more comfortable with saying fresh in public instead of pizza. But you know, share screen. There we go. Entire screen. Yes. Okay, here we go.
Yes, you're
There we
live now.
go. Yeah, cool. We don't have that much time left, but I think the important part that I'll do at the very beginning is what Danilo actually talked about, which is just the base flow that will help you sort of get into Kakarot and what is actually happening. Because the majority of the code is just sort of supportive structure, like utility functions and all of that stuff. But I think that, Danilo has said what Kakarot basically is, which is all we're really doing is we're writing the EVM in Cairo. And what that enables is for us to have a ZKEVM, but to simplify it, the main thing we want to just create is the EVM in Cairo. So our main components here are actually an EOA. So in StarkNet, that's actually a contract. On Ethereum, that's just a private public key pairing. And what it basically does is from there, your EOA, so your normal user account, basically, calls the execute@address function in the Kakarot smart contract. And the main purpose here is all of that does is it fetches the bytecode from a smart contract, an existing smart contract, and then it runs that bytecode. And whilst it runs that bytecode, it potentially performs some state changes, right? So in the Ethereum world, a smart contract is called a contract account. It's confusing for us in StarkNet because for us, an account contract is what an EOA would normally be. But in Kakarot, these are the terms that we use. So these are actually just our main big components that you need to know of. And this is the main flow that we're working with. So a user gets the bytecode from a contract, executes that bytecode with some core data that they also provide usually. And that results in some state changes. Okay, now let's actually look at some code. I'm not sure to what extent people are actually working along with this or looking at the recording and working along. But in general, of course, I hope you've gone through the basic documentation and know how to install the Cairo-Lang and set up a virtual environment that you should be working in. But in general, the README of the Kakarot GitHub page also has a pretty detailed description of what you need to install in order to get started contributing. Primarily, if you've already set up your virtual environment, then the main thing you need to do is install Poetry, run the command make setup, which installs a bunch of dependencies for you, and then you're actually good to go. In some cases, you might need to run some tests that require you to also install Foundry. So in that case, that's what you'd have to do with these commands right here. But yeah, to get started, mainly all you need is basically Poetry as an extra installation besides Cairo-Lang. Now on the left side here, we see sort of the folder set up for Kakarot. Once again, there's a bunch more here that you don't actually probably need to know for your first contribution. So a bunch of different folders like the build folder where we have binary files or the CI deployment files or just in general existing deployment addresses, documentation, different scripts for deployment. These are all not really needed. In the docs, however, there's actually a practical little text snippet under contribution that again goes a bit through all the different things that you need to have installed, which, like I said, if you've already got Kakarot installed, it's not much. But then also here, if you're not that familiar with like also creating PRs for specific projects or open source projects, this will also give you sort of a step-by-step. So it gives you the commands to create a separate feature branch, commit that feature branch, and then create a PR, basically. Hopefully we'll get to that as well, but you know, this is a very handy little step-by-step instruction as well. But yeah, we have, like I said, the main focus actually that you need to be aware of are the source folder and the tests, of course, where we have all the unit integration tests for Kakarot. And this is something that if you've been only been tinkering around with like smaller projects, this is of course something that is maybe more prominent than maybe you're used to if you've only had your private projects until now. But yeah, so inside of Kakarot, the main three components that we talked about before are basically here under accounts. You have the EOA and the contract, right? So these are the smart contracts and the user contract, the normal account. As well as here, we have the Kakarot file. And as you can see, there are a bunch more folders, there are a bunch more files, and they're all loaded with a bunch of different other contracts that have complex names and sound complicated, but really, you don't need to understand a lot of those to make your first contributions. So what you need to be aware of that, especially in StarkNet, usually the setup for contracts is the following, that you have the Kakarot, for example, here, file contract. And this almost only acts as an interface, right, where you have the different selectors, the functions that you can call, but the actual implementation is in a library file. You'll see the same thing under accounts. You have a contract account file, but underneath we have a library file again. Same for the EOA, where the actual meat of the code is inside. So if we go through our steps, we can see execute at address inside of Kakarot. And Henry, feel free to chime in with any questions or clarifications.
I'll ask you for some questions. But in the meanwhile, I can put banners. It's really cool. Like I can add stuff.
I need to switch over. I don't see anything. You can add banners.
Don't worry. It's fine.
Kakarot is really good. Okay, so I won't be seeing whatever you're trolling me with. That's good.
It's fine. Maybe I'll ask whatever. But
okay.
I'll ask questions for sure.
I see.
I'll ask question for sure. I can see your screen when I look on YouTube. I can't really on StreamYard. If you can make it maybe one size bigger, it will be even better, I think.
Can I make my screen bigger?
I
Wait.
think the text.
The font will.
The text?
The font size.
Plus it should.
You guys actually have to tell me how to do that, because I actually have no idea.
It's Command plus or something like the zoom or something.
View. There we go. Yeah. Does this work? We don't need the terminal right now. We can actually remove the terminal. There we go. Okay. So our main entry point in the whole Kakarot EVM is execute at address. So a user sort of sends an address where he wants to execute some bytecode together with some call data. The first thing that we of course do is we jump to our library where the main execution actually happens. And here basically two things happen in essence. One, we create an execution context. I'll talk about that in a sec. And then down here, we run this execution context, which also includes the bytecode. Okay, so that's where we start already. This execution context, it's actually it's a struct that is stored inside model.cairo. And this is sort of the main context, the main information whilst running through that bytecode that sort of updates the current state of the EVM in that sense, or of your execution of that code. So inside here, we have the call context, which is another struct that includes the bytecode of the contract that we fetched and are now executing. The program counter, which you also might know from StarkNet, if you're familiar with the general setup there. The stack, the memory, the amount of gas that has been used while you're executing, the address of the contract that, whose bytecode we're executing, all of this stuff.
So wait, the execution context here, is it the context, like, is it the equivalent of the EVM state when does it model the EVM state when your contract gets executed, or is it related to StarkNet?
It's no, this is not related to StarkNet exactly. This is sort of supposed to mirror the logic inside of the EVM. So this, so doesn't have to do anything with the state in the sense of any storage that is being changed, but it's sort of the state of the EVM in that sense, or your program that is being executed, right? So for example, for that one transaction that you're performing, how much gas has been used, what is the limit on what you're actually doing, what is the current gas price whilst this is being executed. No, actually, we don't need these ones. Let me close those. This is we now initialize this context depending on the parameters that you gave, which is the address, and before that or within this function we also fetch the bytecode. Now we run this context, and the main thing, and this is also sort of one of the main files in this EVM, is actually this function. We decode the bytecode, opcode for opcode, and for each opcode, we call one of any of these many functions, right? So these are all, instead of having basically different if-else, a very large if-else tree here, we have these jump calls. So for example, if the very first byte of the bytecode that we want to execute, if this is now an add opcode, we jump to stop and arithmetic operations. So you can find that under instructions, all of these. So in that category, execute add, right? So go to execute add, that's right here. And so for that one bytecode, we now we get the execution context still. We always forward that to these functions. We get the current stack. We pop the first, the uppermost values. So we get those, we add them together, put them back on the stack, save the stack in the context, return the context, and now we get the next opcode, process the next opcode, and so on and so forth.
Actually implemented the EVM with its stack and everything inside of StarkNet.
Well, in Cairo, yes. In Cairo,
well, what do you mean? This is not meant to be executed in StarkNet?
No, well, you can deploy this on StarkNet, yes. Yeah. But in yes,
in Cairo is what you mean. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
this is a great question, and I guess this is out of scope for this live workshop. But is this a StarkNet function, or is it a Cairo provable thing you can run by itself?
Yeah, so I guess the is in that context, is this basically the main identifier for this? If it's StarkNet ready or not, to some extent, you could say. So I think the big difference is to what extent. I mean, it now also gets wishy-washy in the sense of because we're also moving to Cairo 1, of course. But with the current state of Cairo, the differentiation, I guess, the main one is to what extent you use system calls, right? To what extent do you actually make use of StarkNet in that sense, or any functions related to StarkNet, or is it purely just Cairo? And then maybe are you using hints or not, right? For example, we've eliminated all hints that are not whitelisted on StarkNet so that we can actually deploy on StarkNet, right? So in that sense, you can say this is StarkNet ready code and not just Cairo code.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I would like to add one thing.
Sure.
Usually, it's just something I do when I'm looking into new code and I don't know where this will link to. For example, from the jump, you already knew that it was going to a specific file, but as a newcomer, I might not know. So I use a lot, for example, let's say the stop. Can you copy the stop and arithmetic operations or the exec add? Yes. And then I would go to search and then do a global search and then look into other places where it's done and see where it's defined. So I do that a lot to understand where the flow is, and when I don't know what is happening and where a specific part of the code is coming from, and that really have helped me a lot. So just wanted to share this.
100%. For those using Visual Studio Code, that's Control Shift F, which basically gives you a global search. And it's very easy, especially if you do PRs. Sometimes you change a small thing, and then you create a PR, and then you notice, oh, actually, all of the tests are failing. Why is that? And to actually see whatever you're changing, whatever, if you want to find out what this actually touches, doing a global search, seeing where it is actually being used, helps a lot. That is true. Good point. So this is the main structure. Once again, there's a lot of things that you'll find out. For example, utilities, right? What are these utilities? There's a lot of functions in here in regards to converting uint 256 to felts, or to an array of bytes, or to fill an array with zeros or whatever. So a lot of utility functions. ROP encoding is something that is used, especially inside of the EOA contract, but is, once again, it's something that you don't necessarily need to know for most feature implementations. And now let's actually have a quick look at the actual Kakarot repo. If you go to issues, you'll see a bunch of issues. Usually they have this feature tag in front of them. And these are free issues that people can basically grab, state that you have an idea how to execute it or implement this, and they'll get assigned to you. Right now, for example, you can see most of them have comments existing issues. They're probably being worked on right now. But especially for this workshop, we've sort of created some issues that are not time sensitive, that are basically good representations of issues that you can always basically create PRs for, that you can always work on, right? These are typically things like, and these are not as fancy as a feature, a proper feature, or probably not as fun. But if you want to just get started, and sometimes it's also a matter of, getting to know the people that are running the repo. It's stuff like adding comments, adding more unit tests, optimizing the code, removing imports that aren't being used anymore, etc.
It's also really much less intimidating. I mean, as a first-time contributor, I'd be much more. It would feel much easier to pick up small things and then little by little get more involved. So this is a great first step.
Yeah, and because it's time sensitive, it also doesn't matter if for some reason, you started working on something and said, I'm gonna do this, and then for some reason for a week, you're not available or something. I personally also definitely really like those. Hopefully, of course, the goal is for you to then jump to something larger, but this is, I think, a great starting point. And Danilo, unless you also have something else maybe to say in regards to the repo structure, we might as well just maybe pick out one of these issues and
I think we can go
from an example
with the issues itself.
Okay.
Just wanted to maybe share a little bit the purpose of this workshop issues, which is like Henry mentioned, to make it more feasible, so that you have a lesser feeling of doubt or other can I do it thought process, because actually once you experience your PR being merged, I think that's a really, really great feeling, especially when you thought you couldn't do it. But like it's not about the PR being easy or hard, it's just about trying. So if you want to try to contribute, just try it out, one of them, and then you experience the rest for yourself.
Yeah. I'll just pick this one as an example because actually these are very, very common. So this is just one that I identified. But for example, these, the thing that we'll be fixing here is something that is very common and actually relatively, unfortunately, easy to find. Let me see. Which file is it? It's the accounts, contracts, library. So this is basically the implementation of a smart contract in that sense, an EVM smart contract, where we have a function called bytecode length. Are we in the library? There we go. Bytecode length, which basically this fetches the size of the bytecode that contract holds, right? For whatever reason we might want to fetch that information. So the first thing that it does is it actually goes to the library and calls bytecode length. So basically our implementation of this function. Here it is. And all it really does is it reads from storage. So this storage slot being bytecode length up here, our storage variable. It just reads it, returns it, and here it is returned as a view function. So this is a very, very simple function. But there is actually, we can reduce this function by quite a bit, even though there's barely anything in it, just because there's stuff in here that is actually not needed. I don't know, Danilo, can you spot one thing already? Because I think I haven't showed you this. But these are very scattered.
I think you created hard issues, Pizza.
I mean, one very common thing is, especially in this repo, just because people copy pasta a lot, and they copy pasta a lot of functions. And Cairo has this thing where you have implicit functions, right? I think hopefully whoever's listening to this knows about them. And for example, this bitwise pointer is actually, for example, for doing this, like a storage read, these three are actually needed, unfortunately. I mean, Henry, correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, but these three are needed, but this one is only needed for bitwise operations. So this one is actually, we can remove this. This is unnecessary code. Another one here. Also, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead. I was gonna.
No, go ahead. No, it's good. Yeah, mention one. If you're wrong, we'll laugh at you. That's good.
I think maybe we can just remove the let and have the return .read directly.
And that's going to be an interesting one because this is relatively new to Cairo. But now you basically have the options to either return just a felt or return this as a tuple, I would say. So you can return this basically named, in which case it would look like this. But it has an impact. You're basically only returning a felt as well, but it has an impact in the way that you can return something. So because we are only returning a felt, we, for example, couldn't do this. Why? Because if we read this from storage, what does it return? It returns this tuple. Right. So what we can do though is if we adjust this, we can let this be a tuple with the same name. That has to be the same name, otherwise it doesn't work, as far as I know. And now we've turned these two lines into one. I'm not sure if this is actually a performance increase. Probably it isn't properly. And there's, this is more discussion about maybe readability. And of course, we're returning this. So on this end, we would have to make a change like this. The felt isn't needed, but just to make sure that we're returning a tuple. So this is something that now it's probably almost subjective what you want to use, if you want to use felt or not, because the alternative here is what we can actually do is we could also, if we don't return a tuple, we can, and just felt, we can do this, right? So let's just have this be a felt. And we're returning, oh no, let me Control Z a bunch. There you go. I think that's fine. Wait, let me go all the way back. Too far. Like this. Now we're returning a felt, and now we could compress this to be smaller. But someone could probably argue that this is actually worse for readability. So it's, this is a bit of a subjective one. But one thing that we can definitely change is this local locals. You only need this if you actually use local variables, which we don't. So this can be removed. All right. So just by doing this, removing those two lines is definitely something we can do. And I would say is 100% an improvement. And then in regards to compressing this in order to, comply for this to reduce the lines of code, that's something we can do. It's just questionable if it's actually an improvement or not. That's something that you then maybe, if you create a PR, what you can do is actually create a PR that is not final yet, that is still a draft, and you can put that in the comments. Basically, hey, I would like to do this change. Is this something that we want or not? What is the standard? Because if we look at different functions, this is actually the only one that only returns a felt, and all other ones actually return a tuple, right? So why is this? Probably we should at least be uniform in what we're doing. So in that case, Actually, let's let this be for now, and let's just go to the next step, which would be creating a PR out of this small change. Usually, because you don't want to, if you see this entire file has similar issues, you might as well do it for the entire file, right? Here, probably we need to investigate, does this one need a bitwise pointer? Probably doesn't. We'd have to look what is inside here, assert only owner, but very likely a lot of these functions don't need that one. So you could do a bunch of cleanup. And so one last point that is actually important, because we have so many people, of course, contributing and everybody has a different writing style, there's one command called make format that will go through the code and format it after a different way, or format it after a different standard, a certain standard. And as you can see, actually, because we removed the bitwise implicit function, whatever ruling we have, it states that if we have 3 implicit functions, it's supposed to be in one line. As soon as it's more, it starts stacking them like this, right? So it's just it's an important thing to do. The best thing would be to have this in some way incorporated into a UCI. So every time you create a PR or a commit, it checks if your format has changed or you formatted your code in a way that isn't up to the standard, which you can also just check with make check. I think it's make format check, right? Format check. There you go. But yeah, so this is now nice and formatted for us. And now let's actually, I'll prepare the PR. Yeah. Yeah, if you guys want to, Danilo, if you have something to chime in as well. But otherwise, like I said, even I forget how they actually prefer it. So the nicest way is just to actually copy paste these GitHub commands. So what do we have? We have, wouldn't call it a feature, right? You could call it a feature is going to be totally fine. If you look at a lot of commits, oh no, this is actually our branch name. So yeah, I don't know. Let's call it a feature, and we'll just call it
you can call it amazing workshop or whatever.
Amazing. Oh yeah, amazing workshop PR. Yeah, usually try to make it informative, so if someone sees the PR name, they know what it is. So what we've basically done is just create a new branch. And from here, we'll be committing our work. Of course, if you have a handy, nice IDE, you can also just, use the IDE built-in. This is one of those things where I struggled a lot for a long time, just using the command line, just because it's actually, when IDEs give you something like a good overview of what you've actually changed, this is very helpful for you to track down because, it's very easy to include sometimes a library that forgot to remove or whatever. Just getting a good overview of what you've actually changed and look at that before you commit, because of course every time someone has to review your commits and your PRs, and that actually feels the worst if you've committed something that now you're producing work for others, basically, right? You get 1,000 comments of people saying, oh no, this is actually wrong, this is different, blah, 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 blah. Which it's always nice. It's actually, I'm super grateful when you get these comments and you get to learn from those. But of course, it would always be the best if your PR was actually, as ready as possible when you create it. So what have we committed? Clean, clean bytecode and function. By the way, I always promote using emojis in commits. I'm pretty sure people love it. It's always, wait, you see, yes, commit. And then, the rest we can also do in the actual GitHub
I think
web interface.
You need to push.
Oh, I need to publish. I need to push. Actually, I would just commit it. Let's publish, or in the CLI, you can go git push or git push origin. Now, I need to actually go to my private repo. This is how you would usually do it. So you would clone the main Kakarot repo. I've already done that. Inside of that, you have your main repo, and from there you create feature branches, right? So we've now created this specific branch right here, our amazing workshop PR, compare and pull. And then you actually get this template that you have to fill out. So what mainly it's describing what you've actually done. So first of all, there's like a category here. We've we could call it actually refactoring, right? We've done no functional changes, no API changes. Cold start up.
Can you make it a bit bigger, please?
Bigger. Let me see. I've learned this just now. There we go.
Nice.
Okay. Sometimes it doesn't fully match whatever we're doing, but I think formatting, rename, code start updates. I think, Daniela, what would you put it in? Code start updates or refactoring? Just remove code, basically. Refactoring?
This one.
Okay, put an X in there. You can always preview to see that what you're doing actually makes sense. The time spent on the PR. So this is actually relevant for, because at the end of the day, there are rewards for your PRs, especially, the ones Gvinalpa only does. And your time here is, as far as I know, also used for estimating certain salaries. I mean, the people reviewing that, they also know, of course, what the quality is, and I'm sure that's taken into account as well. But let's say this took us, this didn't take us a lot of time. What's our current behavior? So our current behavior is actually it resolves. We have an issue number. That one is actually nice, just so we can check, or others can check what issues are being resolved. So let us see what is the issue number of this issue. Removed unused function, this one. So it's 513 is the issue number. So 513, there it is. Existing behavior, what is current behavior? What is new behavior? We can, in this case, because we're not creating a new feature, we can keep it short and just say behavior is the same, and just be straightforward with what you've done. Basically, removed unused code, or even say optimized code. Because in theory, after we've created this, here usually I create a draft pull request, and we can actually do it now. If you still want to have discussions about what you're doing, and you're basically signaling this is not final, this is sort of what I'm doing right now. Others feel free to comment on what I've done this far, right? And it will automatically trigger our sort of running, building and testing. Optimally, you should be building and testing whatever you've done locally to check that it's correct. But afterwards, it will be done here. And part of this is also a test, basically, or an evaluation if the changes that you've made have actually increased or optimized the code or not, right? Is it now running longer? And maybe our 2 lines that we changed actually has a performance increase, which would be nice. Or if you've created tests, or actually say, yes, you've increased test coverage. But yeah, once it is done, we could press ready for review, or I can add some comments regarding the one thing I was unsure, right? Do we want to return files or tuples, right? And then usually Abdel has already approved this PR. Usually, there's a very charming but eccentric Frenchman on the other side here, be it Clément, Elias, or Abdel, checking your PRs, having discussion with you.
Charming but eccentric Frenchman. Cool, Ben.
Yes. Not sure if we actually want to merge this. At the very least, I think these tests have or should pass first. But at that point, I think we have the
I think we have the flow ready. We should what's most important. It would be epic to get it in, but
I mean, I'm not sure if
It's
we
not
can or
ready
if
for
it's actually
public.
blocked. Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble afterwards. But I mean, we can actually see, right? We can. This is always check what are actually the lines you've changed. We can see this looks bad. Oh, you've deleted this much, but we've just compressed it in here. Now, we actually didn't double check if we still compile something. That is something we should have done. But I'm pretty sure we've done nothing wrong. Merging is blocked. Yeah. So let's wait for these tests to pass. This can take hours or at least many minutes. So it's not something that will be completed within this session. But yeah, I think that'd be most of this of what I was going to present. And yeah, just as a last note, maybe, especially right now, it can be tough to get, I think, larger features just because of the state that Kakarot is in right now. But as soon as, for example, the Cairo 1.0 repo, I think, is in its basic solid state, I think there's going to be a lot of work there that needs to be done in terms of getting all the features that we've created in the current repo and converting them over to Cairo 1, or also doing them differently. So there's going to be a lot of work in the future, but right now for this specific repo, it might be a bit tougher to get actual feature requests. But I'm sure that's all, to get a larger feature in and actually implement that. But I guess that will change very soon. And like Danilo said, there are tons of other projects on OnlyDust as well, where, that are actually really fun, and where you can
For the
dive
people
into different
watching, by the
technologies.
time you'll be set up and you'll have done your first PR on a small feature, the repo will be ready to get your bigger feature. So get started
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
and then getting started now is the best way to
Yeah,
be able to commit meaningfully the next few weeks.
exactly.
All right, let's check on YouTube if there were some questions. I see a bunch of people saying, "Whoa, how handsome and how great are these coders? This is great." Some people giving advices on how to make the font bigger. Abdel making a few meaningful comments, and Abdel is actually making good comments there.
I actually didn't see
All
that.
right, that's pretty cool.
That's
And I
it.
don't see other questions. Look, fresh pizza, Danilo. Anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, no, I think I can just also reiterate what Danilo said, which is this is a very great space to actually just start just learning programming itself as well. Either that or just space these, let's call it the Web3 space. Getting involved there, it's the easiest way. And it's, some people scoff at, yeah, don't work for free or don't work for, isn't, for me, this was the way I entered, was doing work for free, but also having this free resource of learning how to work in a team. And I think it's super valuable. Also, when it comes to just learning a new language, you have so many practical use cases of actually being able to implement something that will be used and something that is useful. And you don't even have to think of a project. They're right there in the form of issues, right?
Yeah.
So this is for me, this is an amazing way to to get started.
Yeah, you don't have to invent something. You just have to code it and integrate it. I'd add on the part you said, working for free. I think software is eating the world. Open source is eating software also. There's more and more open source code everywhere. And writing open source code, collaborating with others, is non-trivial. It's not something that you learn in school. It's not something that you know how to do right off the bat. So finding a good community where you can learn how you do these stuff is you learning stuff. It's not like, and in the beginning, it's you receive people helping you learn new stuff. That's great. And then you give back to the community and you help people on board. So anyway, the great circle of dev.
Yeah, I'd just
All right.
like to add, if any of you guys have any question or would like to start, and please ask it on the Kakarot channel, or you can also DM me or Fresh Pizza. We are there in the Kakarot channel, so you can find our telegrams easy. We'll be more than happy to answer any question you have or help with anything you need to start your this amazing journey. So yeah, feel free to contact or yeah.
Very cool. All right, people. Thank you for your time today. To all of you listening, thank you for being here, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.